What's up, guys? Market update. Today is Thursday, January 19th, 2017. So let's take a look here. First thing I'll do is show you a trade that I'm in. We do have a lot of news. Well, I'll talk about that in a second. So I'm in a UJ long trade here. So let me explain the situation. Basically, the recent high volume on the 1 hour chart is showing us buying. The first thing we see is this. This is not a typical example, just to define this for you, of strength in the background. Not typical, but it is nevertheless that. It may not be the usual, but in the way that it's set up. But it's high volume, and if you're thinking as weakness, it would have to close down and reject, right? So instead it moved up. And what does that mean? There's a lot of activity here, maybe some selling as well into that, but the buying overwhelmed it. And as we made new high ground and continued up, the volume returned to normal and there's no selling coming in. So any selling that was present was in this area and really got run over and was temporary. There was, the result of all that activity was easily moving up, and those prices didn't show much weakness at all. So there's that. There's also some low volume, some higher volume back here, which it's a bit of a mix of buying and selling. So I'm really working off of that, and basically the weakness of the yen is what's creating a bullish environment to some extent or the other on all the yen pairs. The pound is strong, so that's moving up well off of that. We'll get to that. So I'm in this trade here, and again, just to show the setup, we have this is the low of the day before this. So I had that marked, the retracement point. And somebody asked today, we're looking at fib retracements all the time. They're very common, but not all trades are off fib. It just happens to set up very often that way. But one of the things I use is a fake breakout pattern. So this is clearly the low of the day and a fake breakout. This is another fake breakout within itself here with these two lows. But you see strength coming in and that high volume on the 5-minute. This is ideally what you want to see on a setup too. So to have the volume really be perfect, have the fake breakout pattern, and then everything else that comes along. Here's the automatic rally. This is the stuff I teach, and so everybody watching this is probably understanding this to different extents, but this is the automatic rally, first level of resistance after that strength. And we have our 14 EMA test, which is on low volume. So basically, I'm referring to the low volume test that should be following strength. And that's starting from the 14 EMA and up to the automatic rally. And there's your volume dropping off in there. This is a break test continuation of the automatic rally level, which is a common pattern, which I actually just explained as I was ending my session, that's likely to happen. And I'm looking for this area. It's about 25 pips, 30 pips in here as a first target, and then looking to continue the trend up through here and look at some additional targets based on how much weakness may or may not show up there. So that's the trade that I'm in right now. And then we have, so to give you the complete analysis and get this video out right away. Now, Eurodollar, I haven't been loving it. For late January, it looks a bit confused. It's typically a good time, but it's been sort of just kind of floating around, not really going anywhere. If you notice, this chart really hasn't gone anywhere. And the volume signals are not so clear. But generally, it is pointing towards bullish. If you go to the 4-hour, you see, it's an uptrend, right? And we have a retracement here. But the higher highs are not that high. But we still have higher highs and higher lows, right? And that's clearly an uptrend when you go there. So if there is a trend, it is that. Now, is there any reason to be going against that trend? No. Proper weakness off of this high did not occur. This is a mix of buying and selling, and all this stuff does not show weakness up here. But again, it's a little bit mixed up. I was expecting that it was going to move up today, generally because the dollar itself is weak, so the dollar pair should be moving up. But this wouldn't be my first choice. So again, the euro dollar is sort of on the side for the moment. As far as any clean setups, not quite there. And for the best setups, you need a clean background. So as long as we're not giving clarity here, there's no way to get an A+ setup. Now, I guess I'll mention this now. There's a lot of news coming up for New York session, and that should straighten out the situation with the euro dollar. So going forward and into next week, after today's news, we're going to see some movement and some clarity, and the volume will show up high likely where we want to see it for something clear to act on. So it should straighten itself out. This ECB press conference later, so it's a whole, concentration of stuff there. So it tends to clean up situations that aren't so clean. So euro dollar probably look better after that. Now the pound, very bullish. We actually changed directions because we were in a downtrend. And we did not change directions like we typically do. But again, I just gave this example. This is the recent high volume in the background. Is it a sign of weakness? No, it is not. Look at the result of all that effort. Now, this is where weakness could come in if sellers were continuing to be active. It is not there. So I identify that as aggressive buying. Anybody who sold got a run over. And our background is strength. So that's sort of the alternative that you don't see, right? 9 out of 10 times you would have large strength off the low before something like that happens. But not to get too into it and go on forever, this is reactive. This is pre-planned, right? There's a sell-off and smart money buys into it, right? Which in this case didn't happen, but that's what we're talking about usually, right? The sign of strength and then this. So that's typically a pre-planned, right? As you can imagine, we start buying as others are selling. Smart money does, expecting that that's the last of the selling and that they're going to mark it up. They pre-position. It's the best way to get in, right? But again, you can have reactive moves where there's some uncertainty, some news. There was, I think, something yesterday, a speech concerning the pound. So whatever, you get sometimes reactive moves after some uncertainty, and that's what that was. So that actually changed our direction because of the ultra high volume and what it's telling us. We don't want to go against the downtrend without ultra high volume, but in this case we did get it. It just showed up in a slightly different way. But those of you who have maybe bought the course, studied my method, understand that this is identified as aggressive buying, and this high volume does represent strength in the background. So now going forward, and again, the result is really the key to that and what happened up thereafter. Now, going forward, bullish, and we did retrace some. So we didn't quite get to a fib, right? But we can look in there. Well, first of all, let me just mark the support. Now, if we test this low and get strength, very good place to look for it, or fake breakout, right? And look for that. You can also draw a fib when this thing starts to have a retracement, likely at some point. It's not going to go in a straight line, or maybe it will. But if you get a retracement here, or wherever that high may form, and draw that fib in there and look for the fib retracement entry long. And if we look at it here, there wasn't really strength off the low. It was kind of early in the day. And with the bullish environment, we just started moving up. And we actually got some weakness. So hopefully we get some sort of retracement down move, sign of strength. And again, a fib retracement off of wherever that high is. So I'm not looking to chase this, especially because some weakness showed up. But it is bullish, and I would look for that. Again, maybe after New York news, the dollar will clean up and give the signal on some of these pairs. But a sign of strength at a fib or a support, and look to get in long, get with the background. Now, AU has been, again, very strong. It's in this uptrend. And it's suggesting that there's a retracement coming, a real reversal coming. A couple of down days here, and being able to short now. So even though it looks like an uptrend, what we're seeing is this. Now, that's not climactic volume, and I'm not talking about going short yet. But if you look at the 5-minute, we know this pattern, those of you who know my method. New high ground, the fake break, right? It's in VSA as well, up thrust or sideways roundhouse thrust. And if you look at the 5-minute, though, you see the volume is ultra very high, highest of the day on that into new high ground, sign of weakness stuff. This is my bread and butter stuff here, right? New high ground, fake break. So although there's not enough volume on the 1-hour chart for me to consider going short, these signs are there that the sellers are active, right? So how does that clean up? Maybe it makes another attempt. Again, maybe it does it on news and makes another attempt to move up. And that's, again, shows weakness, something like this. And the activity is high enough on a 1-hour chart to say, okay, that's ultra high or very high volume, highest in a few days kind of thing. telling us weakness. Because again, this is a pretty strong currency, the Australian dollar, and a strong trend. And they tend to go out with a bang. There's a lot of long positions in there. This 5-minute spike does not communicate to me everybody who's long is now out and short. It does communicate that some are, though, So it could be creeping in. And again, a little more evidence of that. And I'm ready to go short. Now, on the other hand, if that doesn't happen, these types of things can just give you a retracement to look to get back into the trend, right? And in that case, you would draw your fib this low to high, draw your fib in there, mark up some level support resistance, and some confluence stuff, and look for where that strength may come in. Because again, you can get in this trend at this point, but there's weakness coming in right now. So you'd want to do it off a sign of strength, off a down move and away from the high, or again, get climactic weakness and then look to short. So that's where it is, and that's the question right now. Is there going to be enough selling? Is this really turning around, or is it just sort of a bit of a retracement and buyers are still going to come in again? So that's the facts about that, and what traders are thinking. Again, AJ shows that same sort of situation with the Australian dollar. Weakness, but what is it leading to in this very strong up move here? And I was looking for, initially as I opened my charts today, a retracement here. And we just went in a straight line, which, I'm not going to expect and jump into a trade at market open just because it's bullish and moving, because that's not a regular day if you look at that. Since London Open, it's just moved up. Normally it doesn't do that. So, but retracements come, right? Even these little dips, or the UJ was just a little dip and I was able to get in. So I'm not chasing price. I won't even get into the reason why, but I could convince you easily not to chase price. Smart money's already in. If anything, this is profitable for them to be getting out at this point, and you'd be getting in. So it doesn't really jive. So again, like I said with AU, it applies here. Some weakness is coming in. So simple retracement, mark up your levels, mark up your fib, and look for the entry to get long. But if it ends up being climactic, then that changes it, and the short entry is on. Okay. And that really applies for the yens. EJ is into some resistance, but really they're likely to correlate with that deal. And so that's about it. Again here, the pound yen is bullish again. It's seen some weakness, but the pound is particularly strong, as we saw with the pound dollar and that whole explanation of changing direction with the pound. So the pound, anything practically, is bullish. It's just a matter of not chasing these moves and looking for the good entries. Now this level here was previous resistance turn support. Okay, this level. And a fib retracement at the time that it was moving back, right? It was running into that. Now I was looking for this entry just for learning purposes here. And I wanted to see, of course, the high volume strength, and I was explaining to the group, this is our price. This is where we want it, right here, because we're double. We're fib zone and this. So if we hit this and see strength, we know what's going on. Now we got this, but it's generally a low volume time now, most likely because they're waiting for the New York news, right? You can see how the market opened up healthy and then got quiet. So we didn't quite get that high volume. If this was the highest of the day on the 5-minute, like some of the others, then I would have been in this trade. But, the buyers came in, but it's generally a little quiet in the market here. There was a lot of reason why price was likely to bounce here, but I didn't quite get the amount of volume that really makes it the high probability trade. You can look back in hindsight, but the high probability stuff is going to have that volume stand out at that point. So going forward, now it's going to new high ground. Unless there's weakness, it's likely a real breakout. But again, I don't want to chase it, and I'd look for those retracements. All right, guys, that's about it. Dollar CAD is trending strong. I think they have some news today. I don't know. Check your news. But again, look for the simple retracement here. It's a straightforward deal. Test of this level, right? Fake break and sign of strength, 14 EMA stuff. You have a pivot there. So a little pop into a little new low ground for the day and a sign of strength. Again, we have to wait for news really with the dollar stuff. It's probably the wise thing to do. I'm not taking another trade until I see the news, if I'm going to trade at all anymore today. Get past that news. And that should actually help things going forward for Friday and into next week. All right, guys. Hope that helps. See ya.